Hi, my name is Naomi and you are very welcome to my science workshop today, where we're going to investigate one of nature's most amazing creatures, bees. Did you know that there's actually more than 20,000 different species of bees? In fact, we think of bees as living in hives and living as a colony together, but many don't. Many bees live very solitary lives. But let's go back to those that do live together in hives, because they are some of nature's most amazing architects. In fact, they're so good that scientists have been studying them for a very long time, just to get some tips. So honeybees are one of those species of bees that are commonly known to live together in hives. They're the ones we will tend to think about when we think of hives. And they build these honeycomb structures a little like this. But why have they picked the hexagonal shape to make the honeycomb? There is actually very good reason, and I'm going to use bubbles, believe it or not, to start the demonstration. We put that to the side for a minute, and I have some bubble solution here. So if I blow a bubble, I'm sure you all know, it's going to come out as a sphere or circle, right? And that's because it allows the bubble create the maximum amount of space using the minimum amount of material, the bubble solution. And that's really important for bees too, because bees make their own material that they build with, the wax, but they need to be really minimal about how much they actually use. It's estimated that bees need to consume 8 ounces worth of honey just to make 1 ounce worth of wax. Or if you want to talk in grams, that's over 220 grams of honey just to make 28 grams or so of wax. So they really have to be efficient about how much wax they use, but they want to create the most real estate, the most space. They need to max the wax. And to explain to you why they use that hexagonal shape, I'm going to resort to bubbles again. So I have some bubble solution here. I've just coloured it with food colouring so that we can see it better. I'm going to pour some into my tray, like this. And then I'm going to use a straw to blow some bubbles. So if you want to test this out, you just need bubble solution and a tray or bowl and a straw. So what shape do you expect if I blow one bubble? We get this kind of dome shape, don't we? You probably have expected that. But in the bee's honeycomb, if we imagine that's just one cell, then they're surrounded by many others. So how does the bubble look if it's surrounded by other bubbles? Let's find out. We start to see that when bubbles start sharing walls, the shape changes quite a bit. In fact, when 3 bubbles are touching, we get this 120-degree angle between each of their walls. Once we have one bubble surrounded by 6 others, we get this hexagonal shape. Look familiar? So what's happening there is that the bubbles are using the least amount of material, the bubble solution in this case, to create the maximum amount of space. And that's exactly what we see with the honeycomb from the bees. So they really are very efficient architects. When a bee collects nectar from a plant, it has a long straw-like mouth called a proboscis that it uses to suck the nectar up from the plant. But how exactly do the bees collect pollen? I can use science to demonstrate how that works using some very simple things. So I just need you to imagine that this balloon is a bee, this plate is a flower, and this tissue is pollen. Actually, I think I can help you with that. So that's better. We have our bee, we have our flower, and we have our pollen made from the tissue. So how does the pollen get onto the bee's body? It's all down to static electricity. As the bee travels through the air, she builds up a small charge of static electricity on her body. She temporarily loses electrons, and that gives her body an overall positive charge. It's not a very big charge, but it's just enough for what she needs. So let's charge our bee balloon with static electricity. Now you could do that by rubbing it on your hair, or you could rub it on something woolly, like my woolly scarf here. So we're going to charge up our bee with static electricity, and then we're going to see what happens when she visits the flower. Ready? So in comes the bee. Look at that. The pollen transfers to the balloon in the same way that the tiny grains of pollen on the flower transfer to the charged body of the bee. Pretty cool, isn't it? Now, the bee's body is full of hairs. They even have hairs on their eyes. And they all fill up with pollen. So when the bee is finished at the flower, she uses her front legs to rub all the pollen down her body and stores it in sacs on her back legs. You can see what I'm talking about in this image here. Can you see all the tiny grains of pollen on the hairs of the bee? And then see that big yellow sac on her back leg? That's where she stores the pollen. Some plants make it a little bit more tricky to get their pollen. Plants like potato plants, or tomato plants, or even blueberry plants. What they do is they store their pollen inside structures called anther on the flower. So the simple process of static electricity just won't work. However, some bees, like bumblebees for example, have come up with a really novel way of getting the pollen out of plants that just don't want to give it up too easily. They use sound or vibration, and I can show you how. But I think it's time for another clear out. That's better. So if you want to try this yourself, you're going to need a tuning fork, and you're going to need some tape and some string or thread, and you're going to need a ping pong ball. It's really simple. Just cut a short piece of the string and stick it with tape onto the top of your ping pong ball. Now you'll know if you ever used a tuning fork that once you strike it, it makes a sound. That sound is because the tuning fork is vibrating, even though we can't see those vibrations. So that's where the ping pong ball comes in. We're able to demonstrate that vibration and that movement a little more easily. So hold your ping pong ball like this at the end of the string, and then simply hit your tuning fork and touch it off your ping pong ball. Want to see that again? So why is the ping pong ball moving? It's actually because of the vibrations of the tuning fork. Those vibrations transfer to the ping pong ball, and because it's suspended on the string and nice and light, we can see the movement much more easily than we do in the tuning fork. And what has this got to do with bumblebees? Well, as you know, bees buzz, right? And they do that through vibration. Usually it's by vibrating some very strong muscles that they have on their backs that are attached to their wings. Not surprisingly, they're called their flight muscles. Now, when a bumblebee visits one of these flowers that has its pollen packed away inside its anther, the clever bumblebee wraps its legs around the anther, and then it detaches its flight muscles from its wings so that when it vibrates them, it vibrates its whole body, not just its wings. And that vibration transfers to the anther, just like we saw with the ping pong ball. And there's enough vibration and force to release the pollen from inside, and the bumblebee can harvest it. In fact, the bumblebee's vibrations are so forceful, they can actually be 5 times stronger than the G-forces experienced by a fighter pilot. So when a bumblebee does this, it's called buzz pollination. And if you want another really interesting fact, the tone of the buzz that the bumblebee makes for its buzz pollination is middle C. Okay, so let's imagine that the bees are filled up with nectar or pollen and they want to get back to their hive. How do they navigate? In fact, many species of bees can travel quite far to collect nectar or pollen, up to 5 kilometers in some cases, maybe more. So how do they navigate back to their hive or nest? Well, they can use light, they can use landmarks, but one particular way they navigate, which I really like, has to do with magnets. And to show you that, we need another reset. That's a lot better. So we're talking about navigation in bees, because it seems at least some species of bees have iron-type crystals in the abdomens of their bodies. What does that do? Well, let's investigate. So I have a piece of card here and I have stuck some magnets on the bottom. And I have some really fine iron filings here. And they are going to mimic the iron that's found in the crystals of the abdomen of some bees. Okay? I'm going to sprinkle them on top of the card here and let's see what happens. So I'm sprinkling them randomly on top. But you may notice there's a pattern forming. See that? When I drop the tiny pieces of iron onto the card, they are being affected by the magnetic field created by the magnets I taped underneath the card. In fact, they are being drawn to the circles of the magnetic field created by those magnets. Now, many scientists think that the iron found in the abdomen of bees acts in a similar way. It is able to help orientate the bee and help it navigate by the magnetic field of the earth. So in effect, a bee may have its own internal compass. Pretty amazing, isn't it? So that's just some of the amazing things that bees can do. I hope you try some of those out yourself. We've touched a little bit on how bees pollinate plants. They are so important to our survival, the survival of other animals on our planet, and to the survival of our planet in general. You see, some bees will help pollinate plants that feed us or feed other animals, and without them we would run out of food supplies. But there's more to it than that. Bees are also very important in the pollination of trees. In fact, honeybees are thought to get up to 70% of their nectar from flowers on trees rather than on small plants. And that helps with tree pollination. And of course, the more trees we have on our planet, the better it is for our planet's survival. Trees take in carbon dioxide during photosynthesis and give off oxygen that we breathe. So trees are also very important when we're addressing climate change. So that means bees are super important for climate change too, right? So now that we have even more of an understanding about just how amazing these creatures are, what can we do to help with their survival? Well, there's a number of things that we can do. Firstly, maybe you've learned some new things today about bees, and maybe you could share those points with others so they'll realize how amazing bees are too. And that could change their actions towards them. What else can you do? Well, flowers are obviously important for bees and their survival. So if you have the opportunity to plant more flowers for bees, that would really help. In particular, think about flowers that they can have in spring and autumn and not just in summer. And remember the trees? If you can get involved in planting trees, well, that'll help the planet and the bees. What else can you do? Well, there's plenty of chemicals used on plants and in gardens that are very harmful to bees. So maybe you could talk to the people responsible for keeping the gardens or the areas around your home or your schools and persuade them to use more organic, natural products so they're not harming the bees. And maybe you could suggest that they leave areas of the garden free from mowing for a while so that the flowers that the bees will access in the summertime are there for them and not cut too quickly. Or that small areas are kept totally untended and natural. That can particularly provide undisturbed living areas for more solitary bees. Well, I really hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned something about bees. There's so much more to learn. Maybe you could go off and investigate some other aspects about these amazing creatures. In the meantime, I think I've earned a little snack. Time for some honey. Slán. But wait, before you go, would you like to see where that honey came from? Follow me. So, thanks Diarmid for offering to show us the beehive.
Oh, you're welcome.
So we ready?
We are. You might need this though.
Oh, okay. Do I really need this?
Yes, of course, because you know when you're looking at a hive, sometimes the bees, the guard bees, will come out and defend the hive. So if you don't have a suit on and you're not well put up, you might get stung.
Okay. What have you got in your hands there?
I have gloves, so it's very important that you have gloves on and that you try and cover all parts of your body because bees are very clever. They'll find out a little hole that you might have in your suit or things like that, and they'll give you a little reminder not to go near them again.
Okay. I have a question for you actually before we get started.
Of course.
Why do beekeepers always wear white suits?
Well, the reason why you wear white is because the bees will land on you sometimes, and you want to be able to see them on your suit because sometimes they land on you in clumps. So it wouldn't be very good if you kind of went back into your house with a suit full of bees if you couldn't see them, and then all the bees would be in your house.
Great. Okay, I shall put on my suit.
Great.
So what are you preparing there then?
Well, I'm just going to prepare, this is called a smoker, and this is handy. Beekeepers, we use it, and it puffs out smoke. So when we're opening the hive, the bees don't really like the smoke, so they keep away. And also the bees, if they feel the hive has been attacked, they send out this little scent, like a pheromone, like a perfume. And all the other bees smell the scent and they go towards that and they say, hey, what's wrong? What's wrong? And they're getting ready for action.
So it's like an attack pheromone?
Yeah, like an attack pheromone. And what the smoke does is disguises that pheromone so that when the little bee releases the pheromone, the other bees can't smell it, at least for a while. So that's why we use the smoke. Okay, so it'll effectively suppress their signalling to attack? Their attack, yeah. Great. And what are you putting in there? I'm going to put in some cardboard and I'm going to light it with this this natural stuff. It's sawdust and a bit of wax. Okay. And we're hoping that that'll burn for a bit and then turn into smoke. So that's what we're kind of doing at the moment. Just get that going now. And so we're going to start with the cardboard lighting. And we don't want the whole thing to burn up in a big flame because then you'll be shooting out heat. What you want is smoke. Oh, there's smoke already. Smoke already, yeah. Great. And we'll let that go for a little bit. And then here in my pocket, I have some wood shavings. Okay. What are they for? Just to keep it going, is it? Keep it going, and they often give you a bit of smoke as well. I'm going to put too much in because you don't want the flame to go out, but you want enough so that the flame will keep going. So. And there we have it. Would I guess that it's not unusual to see a beekeeper with a pocket full of shavings? Probably not. Wood chips. At least this beekeeper has them anyway. Okay. Okay. So and then, see when I push that bellows? Yeah. That pushes air through there. And then we should get smoke coming out of there like a train. So it's not coming out yet because it's still burning a bit. So that pumps air in because fire needs oxygen in air in order to burn. Oh, I think I'm seeing smoke now. We're getting some smoke now. Not a lot, just a bit. Yeah. Still on the way, burning a little bit there. Oh, didn't you tell me before about another scent that bees don't like? Oh yes, they don't like the scent of bananas.
bananas.
Yeah, so now there we have the smoke. So it's very
Oh, I
important
see
that
the smoke.
beekeepers know not to eat bananas, because if you eat bananas and the bees smell bananas, they go crazy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's an interesting one. I wonder why bananas.
yeah. So there we go.
So do you think we're ready to go
I think we're
visit
ready
your
to go
bees?
beekeeping. So
Okay.
we'll have a look inside the hive and see what the ladies will think of that.
Okay.
Okay. Choo choo. Want to have a look in the front of the hive?
Hmm?
Want to have a look at the front of the hive?
Before you go over?
Yeah.
So I see you have a wild area here.
Yeah.
Is that for protection or also for
Protection,
food?
and they keep them. They like to live in trees, so I keep them under the trees, so they feel good about that. It's their natural environment. Now there's the entrance to the hive. Now they're very quiet at the moment because it's cold. It's coming into winter, but you'll often.
Oh, so that's where they go in and out.
That's where they go in and out, and you might see in a while they're a bit cold, so they've kind of gone in, and you might see in a while that one of them will come out. That's a guard bee. He's checking us out. And the other kind of thing you see here which is very interesting. I don't know if the camera can pick it up.
Oh,
you see this kind of you see this kind of brownie stuff there.
See if I can zoom with my.
Yeah, that
Oh,
stuff.
there's a bee.
Yeah, and that stuff.
Okay, so that's a guard bee.
There's a guard bee now. She's just checking us out. And then you see this brown stuff here. That's what the bees do, is they go up in the trees and they collect tree sap and they make glue out of it. So anytime that you put, say, a wooden section on the hive, you don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to. There she is. Is she saying hello?
She's a guard bee.
She's a guard bee, yeah.
Okay.
And she'll just check you out if you stay there too long, or she feels threatened. Then she'll come out and chase you off. Sometimes they'll headbutt you, or if you don't go fast enough for them, they might give you a bit of a sting reminder. And this stuff here, they take from the tree sap, and you just put the section of wood on, and you don't have to glue it, or you don't have to screw it on or nail it. The bees then stick each bit together. So they use the tree sap to make their hive and to block up holes and to build as well.
So what kind of hive is this?
This is called a worry hive. So this isn't like the commercial hive you see. This is a hive where it's a bit more natural, and you will get honey out of it. But it's mainly a hive to keep the bees and keep the bees happy.
Okay.
Because these type of bees are Irish bees. They're called the black bee, and they're native to Ireland. So they're very resilient to wet and to cold weather and damp weather.
Right.
Okay. So we're just going to have a look inside it now. There's the roof. See each section here.
Who made the hive, by the way?
Oh, I made it out myself out of wood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so
a commercial hive
is different, and it's got little sections in it that you can take out with the bees, and it's very good. And it's very good for harvesting honey from a commercial hive.
Okay.
This is a little bit more tricky to harvest honey from, but you'll get a little bit of honey from the top. But it's mainly a hive just to preserve bees, because they're very important, as you know, for the environment.
Okay.
Okay. So we're just going to have a look. In the top here, I'm going to take off the roof.
Okay. Do you need your smoker?
I might need my smoker in a while. And then what you have here, you have what's called...
Can I come closer?
Yes, you can, yeah. So then we have a little bit of sawdust there. This is why I keep the sawdust.
Oh.
Always top up the sawdust with a bit more to... because that's an insulation, so keep the bees warm.
Oh, right, to keep them warm.
Yeah,
So
because
this is like the attic or the roof.
the attic, and it's like if you go up to your attic, you might see insulation, and this is the same thing, because bees have to keep their hive quite warm, almost the same warmth as we need to keep our own bodies. So that's quite warm. And now we're just going to have a look at the top here.
Okay.
Now you see the way I've just left that there about a month ago. I took off that, and now it's stuck. The bees have stuck it down onto the other section with the sap from trees. So I have to lever it off and just using a little blade here. And best be very quick, because I don't want to make them get cold. So there's the top. A couple of other little creatures here. Okay.
Some stowaways.
Some stories, and then we're going to have a look. See that brown stuff there again?
Yeah.
That's the propolis. That's what they glue everything together with.
All right.
Great stuff.
Show us that again.
There it is.
Please.
See it?
Wait now, just keep it still. Okay.
So we're going to take this off now. They're very quiet because it's probably a bit cold. And now, if you look in there, you see the honeycomb.
Wow,
See there?
look at that.
There's little bees that are coming up to say hello. They're not very. The black Irish
Look
bee
at
is
the
nice and
honeycomb.
yeah.
That's lovely honeycomb.
Yeah, isn't it lovely?
So that's going down from those wooden
That's
slats?
coming down from those wooden slats there. Now you see there's a little bee. She's just jumped on me there. And they're quite docile. They're a lovely bee, the Irish bee. And yeah, okay.
Okay.
Now I'm going to close it over again because I want to keep the, you see the way they've also glued the top there a little bit to keep the heat in.
Okay.
Okay.
And what is that? Like a muslin or
A
something?
muslin, that's sackcloth, yeah. So what that does is it allows any moisture in the hive to be released, but it also keeps the warmth in because you don't want it to get too moist. Okay, and then we put that back together, and what they'll do is they'll come back up there and they'll glue that down strong. They need to put in a little bit more insulation in there.
I can hear some buzzing.
Yeah.
Did you know that the buzzing is because they can beat their wings up to 230 beats a second? Isn't that incredible?
That is incredible.
They are amazing creatures.
So we didn't have to use the smoke at all, really.
They were quite sleepy.
Yeah, they were a bit sleepy.
I was hoping to see the lovely pollen sacs on their back legs.
Oh yes, yes.
They're all gone to bed tonight.
I think they're all gone to bed. It's in the evening time now. They still will come out. Sometimes they won't come out too much in winter time. But if the weather gets good at all, and if they know that some winter flower is blooming, they will come out. But if it's very rainy or something like that, they'll stay in the hive and drink honey and cuddle together and keep warm.
I heard that the forerunner to the bee was around in the same time as the dinosaurs, about 100 million years ago. Is that true?
That's true. Originally, their ancestors, I suppose you could say, were wasps. And they reckoned that they were meat eaters, so they went after smaller insects. And they used to visit the flowers to hunt those insects. And gradually, they learned the lovely taste of nectar from the flowers and decided, oh, this is much nicer food. And then they started to come together in colonies. And then they evolved into the honeybee. And the honeybee, they're very, very smart. They act almost as one. So the life of a honeybee is very interesting because what happens when they're born, they put in an egg, goes into a little cell, and then the bees feed that little egg, and it's a little grub, and then it turns into a bee. And they have a certain set of duties to do. So a very, very young bee will start off by helping feed the younger bees, okay? And then it'll do house cleaning duties around the hive to keep it clean. And then it moves on to something like keeping the hive temperature, if it's regular. So if it's too hot, it cools it down by flapping its wings. If it's too cold, it warms it up by shaking its shoulder
So they
blades.
can control the temperature by beating their wings?
Beating their wings and
Wow.
also generating heat by shaking their muscles in their back.
We were learning actually about buzz pollination by bumblebees using
yes.
their flight muscles vibrating in their backs.
Yeah,
so just what you're talking about there.
So they do that a lot. And then they graduate to guard duty. We just saw one at the door there. And then their final part of their life is flying around gathering nectar and pollen to feed the little ones and feed themselves and look after the hive.
It's amazing, isn't it? They really are amazing creatures.
Yeah, they're very beautiful, very, very good. They do an awful lot for nature. Without them, there wouldn't be a lot of plants around.
And the honeybee tends to forage more on tree flowers.
Yes, the honeybee is mainly what we call an arboreal bee. So it likes tree flowers. And if you often see, you'll see obviously, say, a chestnut tree would have big, huge flowers. But all trees have flowers. You don't notice them a lot of the time. Oak trees have flowers and ash have flowers. But they produce a bee food as well. and a large chestnut tree with all those flowers in them, a bee will get maybe 40 jars of honey from that in one flowering.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's incredible. So more trees and more bees.
Yep, more
Good
trees
for the
and more
planet.
bees.
Yes.
Exactly.
Great. Thank you so much, Diarmuid, for the tour. They look like happy bees, the bit I saw. I
Yes.
particularly liked the guard bee coming out. She was sleepy enough, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was.
She wasn't too bothered by us.
She knew we were no threat and she was just giving us a wave. Yeah.
And I have to thank them because this was where my jar of honey came from. So thank you very much, bees. Have a good night's sleep. And thanks so much, Diarmuid.
Okay.
We'll have to get a beehive selfie now.
Exactly.